Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this Tuesday evening via Zencaster is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, the Islanders dropped a game in LA to end their winning streak at 6, but you would be hard pressed, I think, to call that road trip out to California a failure. They went from being like, what was it, 8 or 9 points out of the playoffs to being in a playoff spot briefly. They were knocked out with the loss, but as we are monitoring the Red Wings Sabres games tonight, they might end up back in that playoff spot just due to if Detroit loses that game. Where are you at right now with the Islanders after this 6-game losing streak has come to an end? And again, their playoff fortunes have completely changed from basically 2 weeks ago.
I couldn't be happier. We were kind of onto it in our last episode.
Hmm.
We said that if the Islanders can find a way to get by that Blues team, um there's like a 6-game winning streak just waiting for them.
Hmm.
And someone texted me saying that our last episode was perhaps the most optimistic that we've ever sounded. But I think, like you said, hard pressed. You'd be really hard pressed to be pessimistic about the state of the Islanders right now.
Hmm.
And it's taking a considerable effort to um, retrain myself to stop waiting for the other shoe to
Hmm.
drop,
Yeah, me too.
which is it does take a considerable effort, right? Like even with the coach. I mean, I love the coach. I love him so much.
Hmm.
Um, and but it does take some effort to like not think about yeah, almost like worry about he's gonna, like, run away, you know? Like, it's like this weird kind of, th what was the fairy tale where, like, the lady locks up, the
Oh,
princess and
Rapunzel?
Rapunzel, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's not that situation, right? He's here willingly.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
but
seriously.
it's taking some training, some mental training to stop thinking that way. And it's also now your focused and mentality and your outlook on the season has to change as well because we've now gone from all right, we need a not I wouldn't call it like a minor even a minor miracle, but a pretty unlikely run of success to
Hmm.
get into the playoffs. And now it's so you're rooting for that. You're rooting for a long shot. And now 10 days later from the last time we spoke, it's now a blown opportunity if they don't get in, right? Almost like a
Hmm.
little bit of a not I wouldn't call it a choke job at all, but
Right.
it would the needle would be pointing closer to that than long shot now. So like that mentality is changing too. The Islanders have this opportunity in their grasp. And if they don't get in, I'm gonna be severely disappointed now. Like, our
Yeah.
hopes are up, and I'm trying desperately not to think about, "Okay, if my hopes are up, that means something bad is coming on the other side of this."
Yeah.
Um, but, it's taken a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of that stuff. The other shoe dropping, the change in kind of mental attitude, the getting your hopes up and being a little bit afraid of that. And it's amazing what winning a bunch of games in a row will do. Who knew? Who knew this was at all
Right.
possible? Because I haven't done that in 2 years. Like
Yep.
win a bunch of games in a row, basically. So it's been fun. Again, we're going to talk about this winning streak and the end of it, obviously, that came on Monday night. But it's funny. I was also thinking about it today. The game in LA, we're going to get into it, but like I was thinking that all we want for this team is in a lot of ways to just be normal. And to me, the fact that they dropped that game after winning 6 in a row meant that I didn't have to antagonize over it or get really bent out of shape over it or kind of worry about what it means going forward because hey, you know what? You won 6 games in a row. And, my brain is now hopefully getting rewired to think, well, maybe we could win another bunch of games in a row and make a loss just a loss, just a thing that happens as opposed to kind of a bellwether for the or what we used to say the referendum on all things
Yeah.
Islanders. Like it's just sometimes it's just lost. Sometimes
It's
it
just a
wasn't your
loss.
night. Like it's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
But I had this exact conversation with myself going to bed. I'm like,
Yeah.
"You gotta just go to sleep, okay?"
Hmm.
They weren't gonna win the
Right.
next 20
Yeah.
games. You need to be okay with it.
Yeah.
This is all taking a lot of training, and I think it's because we got so screwed up by the last season and this season, we do a pretty good job, I think, of big picture Islander specific predictions.
Yeah.
And it's not just us, but Islander fans just generally, because we know the ebbs and flows of this team. We've watched them
Mm.
for decade plus now for most of these guys, and um, as we dubbed last season an 82 game playoff, and it was exactly that.
Yeah.
It came down to literally came down to game 82, and so we didn't have a second to spare last season. We didn't have a
Mm.
chance to take a deep breath, and then this season, it was basically a zanier version of that of an 82 game playoff.
Mm.
That last night it felt really weird because it was almost the first non must win game that
Yes.
this team had on its
Yeah.
plate since,
Oh God. Who
I don't
knows?
know, October of 2022. Like,
Right. Yeah.
it's just
Exactly.
it's crazy to
Yeah.
think that way because the stakes have just been so high because we knew the margin for error was so thin
Right.
and all that. That that game last night, it felt weirdly it just felt weird. It just
Yeah.
felt weird not having to live and die with every shift and
Mm.
watching Sebastian Aho do that little toe drag and not thinking, "Oh god, if they go the other way in 2-on-1, the season's
Right.
over. I'm gonna have to replay that Sebastian Aho toe drag over in my head for the
Yeah.
entire summer knowing that's when the season ended."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was just nice not having that baggage for a change. Now the
Yeah.
downside is they lost, so,
Right.
Thursday night, of course,
Yeah.
becomes
The
different, but
next
I'm
big one.
still trying my best to just take it those these days as they come,
Yeah.
and appreciate that this team went on this 6-game winning streak that, I think ticked a lot of boxes that feel like the way they're playing is sustainable. I feel very at ease about where the direction of the team is going, and I'm trying my best to focus on those things rather than what how will I feel at
Mm.
10:30 p.m. on Thursday night should they lose to the Sabres, and
Right.
um, so maybe we're growing.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I would like to think so, but yeah, that doesn't mean the game in LA wasn't frustrating. But we'll talk about it. Again, sometimes just wasn't your night, and it's okay after winning 6 in a row. We're gonna get to that, plus all the other games that were before that Kings game. Reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. Plan start as low as $2 a month, and you can get ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts like the almost 2 hour long monthly mailbag episode we recorded last night, and plus written posts and a whole lot more. So sign up today, patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. You won't regret it, I promise you, because we put out stuff there all the time. Okay, before we talk about this Kings game, let's backtrack to the 3 previous games, which were all wins. And the game against the St. Louis Blues, which happened last uh, Tuesday, I guess, I had completely forgotten about because it happened so long ago. But it was a 4-2 Islanders win. They basically dominated from the jump. They were controlling play, and then the Blues took a 2-0 lead. And you thought, well, so much for that 3-game winning streak. That'll be the end of it. But all of a sudden, Kyle Palmieri, who has been the hottest Islander by far, he scores cutting across the net. JG Pajot whips in a rebound. It's tied at 2. And then the third period was all Islanders. Bo Horvat scored that beautiful wraparound goal on Joel Hofer, who before that looked like he was going to steal the game. And Sorokin was great. And they gave up no high danger chances against, which is also another theme. And we got a second empty net goal this season. Can you believe it? From Matt Barzell. Apparently only his second ever career empty net goal. Kind of crazy. But yeah, 4-2 win. Sorokin only had to make 19 saves. Some of them really need to be very good. And again, Holfer looked like he was going to steal it. He ended up making 29 saves. But that was an enormous win. And I believe you were there, right?
Yeah, I was there, and got to spend some time with friends of the podcast, Desmond from the Through the Island
Mm,
podcast, and Matt Strauss, who was in town from Denver. I was there with my dad. We saw a good friend, Arthur Staple,
mm,
and that game that I talked about that joke my friend made about how we'd go outside and get stoned and then come back inside and just be
right.
like, "Hi, we're different now." And that game was almost like that every period, right? You go walk out into the concourse of a tightly contested game, and it's 1-1 or 0-0, whatever, however the first period ended, and then it's 2-2. The Islanders had like you said, given up 2-1, but we're playing well. You felt in your bones like they were the better team, and It was just gonna be about if they had enough time to bury their chances. They do, you come back out, you feeling pretty confident that they fought their way back in the game, but also nervous.
Yeah.
And then after the game, it was just jubilation because that game really felt like the step forward was you could almost see the step forward that this team has
Yeah.
made.
Yeah. They
They
just
didn't get
decided to take the game over,
yeah.
basically. Yeah.
It was like those Trots games when
Mm,
you just were like, "Oh, man, like, this they're gonna just suffocate the life out of this other team."
yeah.
The Blues wanted no part of it, as we headed down the stretch of that game, and the Islanders took over. Bo Horvat was how awesome was that?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
he had those 2 turnovers, comes back, and, was just a man on a mission, and there was a guy that the Islanders drafted, before Victor Hedman in 2009 that kind of had that same look in his eyes sometimes where he would
Yeah.
maybe make a mistake or the game would just be a tight checking, frustrating game, and his work ethic, of course, was part
Mhm.
of the reason people thought he should have been drafted before Victor Hedman, which, looking back on it was a huge mistake,
Right.
obviously,
Yes.
but, he Horvat kinda had that feel to him that game, and, it was also evident now that that super line with Barzal, Nelson, and,
Mm,
um, Horvat has been a joy, and,
yeah.
it's working. So the plan was starting to really come into focus, um, ahead of the Blues game, I would say, like and I think that, Matty Usher told me that Lou Lamoriello did a press thing in recent days where he said that Waugh told him after the Blues game where they lost 4-0, like, everything's there. Everything
Mm,
they've got it down, everything's there, they're playing well, everything's there but the confidence.
yeah.
Um, and I think that is 100% spot on. Like,
Yeah.
this team, now that they have, like, a little bit of mojo to them, and they believe in what they're doing, and they've won a few games, and they can see the results, um, they can be unstoppable,
Yeah.
on some nights, and I think they certainly were,
Mm,
uh,
yes.
against the Blues. Like, there was no way they weren't gonna win that game after they tied it up.
Yeah. I mean, contrast that game versus the matinee game against Calgary, which
Right.
happened just a couple weeks earlier. They lost that game 5-2. The Flames went up 3-0 through 2 periods, and they were, the Islanders had at no point did they look like they wanted to win that game. Like the Flames went up 3-0, and that was it. They were done with it. Here, the Blues went up 2-0, but the Islanders had played the better game. And so they seemed to almost be pissed off that they were down 2-0, and they just decided to take the game over. And it was a really joy to see. And I mean, a well executed wraparound goal is a very, very enjoyable thing. And in this case, Horvat came around. It came off of the back of Holfer's skate. We've seen Nelson scoring a bunch of wraparounds that go like kind of wide as the goalie is coming towards him to stop it. So it was great. And when he did it early in that period, it just brought the whole, the place to life again. They had already tied the game, obviously, at that point. And it was just a lot of fun to watch. And again, the Blues, don't forget, they had shut like you just mentioned, the Islanders had gotten shut out by the Blues just a week earlier. So this was extra sweet revenge there. I have no idea who Alexei Toropchenko is, but now I hate him because he scored that goal against them. Yeah, so that was a good one. And so then the Islanders packed their bags. So now that was win 4 in a row. So they packed their bags. They head out to California. This has sometimes not been that kind to the Islanders in recent past, but they started this time in San Jose, and a guy named Magnus Krona started in goal for the Sharks. And you thought, okay, on the road, basically untested goalie against a very bad team. This is where the Islanders would normally falter, and they did not. They won 7-2. Noah Dobson scored 19 seconds in, was a bad goal, and that was just how the game went. Even though the Sharks had the better play in the first period, Alex Romanov scored towards the end. The Sharks did get one early in the second, but then the Islanders just took over. Horvat again. Mike Hoffman scored against a team that he's always been traded to every year. But then Kyle McLean, who I want to talk about a little bit later, scores off of Krona's helmet. That's always fun to see too. 3 goals in 40 seconds, basically. And then Barzal and Aho scored before the end of the period, and that was it. It was 6-2 Islanders, and the game was over. And you could just kind of sit back and enjoy the rest of the period, stay up late. Lee had another goal in a power play. So it was fantastic. Yeah, okay, fine. Their goalie was bad. He gave up 3 goals basically by accident. Brendan Burke at one point said that's the third goal to have gone in off a pass in front of the net. But hey, sometimes you're going to win a couple of those, and it had been a long time since the Islanders had gotten one of those. And win number 5 just came and went 7-2. And I'll tell you, nothing's better for a bad goal differential than a nice fat 7-2 win, because all of a sudden you go from -22 to -13. You're like, oh, that sounds a lot better, you know. So yeah, this was a fun one. Did you stay up late to watch this one on a Saturday night? Oh no, sorry, Friday night. Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Thursday
no,
night. Sorry.
um, I was up for that one, and, uh, I was almost upset that they scored that early goal the way it happened, because I was like, "Oh god, this is gonna throw everything off
Right, yeah. But
the
again, see,
entire."
that's what we're used to. Get them
Right.
getting a goal, then just sitting back, but they did not do that this time.
No, they didn't, and I thought they had some kinks to work out, like, there were some, messy moments, but that was, uh that was just, a
Yeah,
drubbing,
yeah.
and the, y the Kyle McLean experience has just been
Yeah.
a joy, man, and, I mean, Aho scores, he's been really good lately, that 3rd line, the Swedish connection with Cizikas in between the Swedes has been going really well, and,
Mm,
like, that you think about those 3 guys, like, Holmstrom is lanky,
mm,
Engvall's lanky,
yeah.
Cizikas is a little bit of a bulldog, so it's it's funny how that one works, but, yeah, I thought everything about this game was just it was relaxing, it was nice, it was kind of, the, uh, the quintessential I almost wish I was entertaining people. I was like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna have the Islanders on in the background, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna really pay attention to it, much," but, 'cause it didn't need your full undivided attention after the kind of weirdness
Mm,
of the, like you said, those back goals in uh, every 30 seconds for a couple minutes spell in the middle of the game. But I had a lot of fun watching it. And as soon as they won that game, though, the the kind of the weight of what was happening with so they won 5 in a row. It was the trade deadline was the next day, so nobody was really noticing that the Islanders were on this heater. They just pulled up basically alongside the Lightning, Flyers, and Red Wings. It happened uh, on the West Coast at 10:30. The game ends at 12:31,
mm,
and it was a game against the Sharks, so it was a taking care of business situation. So
mm.
nobody was really paying any mind to the fact that this was going on.
Right.
And all I was thinking was, they have this opportunity, ahead of them with the back-to-back to win one of those back-to-back games at the very least, get 2 more points, and come back across the country with, 6 games in a row or 6 out of 7, 12 points out of 14, and
Mm.
be a favorite to lock down a playoff spot, knowing full well that that was gonna be the game against the Ducks was gonna be the one where people kind of perked up and took notice because the trade deadline was
Yeah.
over, a couple days to decompress and, lobby your class action lawsuits against the Golden Knights, write your magnus opuses about, Joel Edmondson,
Mm,
and, come to grips with, Sidney Crosby
mm,
having to play for a team that had to
mm.
trade one of its players. The
Yeah.
people had time to deal with all that, and,
And don't forget Matt Rempe.
oh,
Rempe
yes, of
mania.
course. Yes, and Matt Rempe. So
Right.
people had time, to deal with all that stuff, and the Islanders were gonna play a 8 PM, polish off the NHL's week with a game
Mm.
against the Ducks, knowing that, that was the game that would turn people's heads, including my own. Like, okay, like I'm here. I'm on the edge of my seat now. I'm trying to adjust my mentality settings from.
Mm.
I just hope they get into. Now I'll be disappointed if they don't. So
Yeah.
and they did that. To their credit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, like you said, it was the kind of game we hadn't seen in a while, a relaxing one. They just went up big, and at that point, they I wouldn't even say they coasted in the third period. They played a pretty good period, and like I said, Lee got another one there, but it was a nice change of pace, especially for a late game on a Thursday night, and it was fun to watch. And the Sharks, man, it's bad. There was 5,000 people there. It reminded me of Nassau Coliseum during some of the bad years in the 90s. And I feel for them. I really do. Maybe they'll get back there. It's funny. A couple of days later, Thomas Hurdle would get traded to the Golden Knights. So that was basically his last. I mean, he wasn't playing obviously, but that was probably the last Sharks game he watched as a member of the San Jose
Right.
Sharks before he got shipped off. So, but like you said, I mean, we're constantly waiting for the shoe to drop. So it's like, yeah, they won 5 in a row, but they're still out here, and they've got this Ducks team that, again, has traded a bunch of people, and we hear about how great Pat Verbeek is, the tough negotiator who doesn't sign guys without putting them through the ringer first. Frege. Well, the Islanders beat them 6-1. And this again, this was a great game because there was a lot of teamwork happening in this game. Sezika scores about 5 minutes in, but really that goal was made by Simon Holmstrom, who basically stole the puck down low, kept it against the boards, waited and found Sezikis in the slot, and he just hammered it home, and it was a beautiful play. Mike Riley sent one of the best passes we've seen in a long time to Kyle Palmieri to send him away in a breakaway. His backhander was so soft that you could almost like count the seconds before it, as it was going towards Lucas Dahlstell, and he just missed it, and it goes in, trickles in past his pads. 2-0 Islanders. And then Nelson scores, but it was Barzell on the wall passing to Horvat, who passed it to Nelson, who scored right from the slot. Absolute thing of beauty. 3-1, 3-0 Islanders after one. And it was like, if I were the Ducks, I almost would have left. Like they had nothing. They had nothing going. It was all Islanders. Now, to the Ducks' credit, they did play a pretty good second period. And as I have in my notes here, it was asshole time. This is the team we've seen too much of. The Islanders being passive, just letting people walk into the zone, like giving up all kinds of great chances. Alex Killorn scored 24 seconds in, and you thought, oh, great, this is going to be tied by the end of this. But they hung on, was sloppy. They were slow, but they picked up pace towards the end. And then the third period was all Islanders. Horvat again. Engvall scores on a breakaway. Even Kyle Clutterbuck and Matt Martin got in on the teamwork vibe, setting up a nice goal too. So I felt happy for those guys. Third period, very strong. Semyon Varlamov won his first game since December 13th. Lucas Dahlstell was not good. But again, win number 6. They move right back into the wild card spot. A little bit more tense, I would say, than the Sharks game. But overall, it just a fantastic performance. I mean, certainly one of the better performances under Wah, one of the better performances we've seen in years, literally. And it was nice to see, shout out to the Skates at the Stakes guys for saying this, and they're 100% right. Somehow Patrick Waugh has reinstalled the Killer Instinct software into these guys and like has made it, 1 goal or 2 goals isn't enough. Like they want more. They're going to keep pushing until they get more. And this was one of those games where they pushed it and they got more, and they walked out with a fantastic 6-1 win. Again, taking a big chunk out of that goal differential. So this was fantastic. And and it started at 8:00 at night. So it didn't even end that late. It was a good one.
Yeah, it did. And that gave me, basically an hour to Patrick Ross installed the midnight rule, right? Like you can celebrate the win and then you can't think about
Yep.
it. I broke it
Yeah.
after the Ducks game. I'll tell you that much. Because I milked every second of after the Ducks game till the drop of the puck for the Kings game, thinking about this team and the just that general feeling of
Mm.
I wanted to. My friend was saying like I'm going out in the boardwalk in Long Beach. I'm just going to walk around with my Islanders gear and just say let's go Islanders to anybody else who was saying it, and that's like the general feeling I had because on Monday
Mm.
running some errands, doing work and whatever. And I'm just driving around this neighborhood and you see like Islander flags in different spots that you maybe
Mm.
I hadn't seen before. And people wearing the hats and the shirts, and they're thinking the same thing. Like I want to talk about the Islanders. And it's funny that you mentioned the Skates and Steaks guy because Rat Martin brought up something how like he was at like a work happy hour and nobody wanted to talk Islanders, so he left. And that's all I want to do right now with the way they're going is
Right.
is I just want to talk Islanders with people who want to talk Islanders right now with the way that
Mm.
this is going. And it's it feels like this groundswell is really percolating
Mm.
right now, and the Islander fan base, like when it's time to get behind the team and it's time to rally around them and push them and be a part of a playoff push, like this is now a bona fide playoff push. Whereas last
Mm.
year it was I don't even know. Like thinking back to last year, I don't know how we made it.
Yeah.
Um,
We made it
Truly.
because they made it because the Blackhawks beat the Penguins in
No,
like the
I
last week
mean
of the
you
season.
like us as fans. Like I don't know how we
Oh,
made it
oh, oh.
through it. Like I don't.
Yeah. No, that's
It
true.
it was insane that
Mm.
that constant sprinting, and we're being chased by a monster basically in a movie, and, like, you put your hand on a palm tree and start taking a deep breath in the jungle, and you'd think, "Okay, I got, like, a second here. There's no way this monster is gonna be able to find me here," and then you'd hear, like, the screeching, and then you're like, "Ah, shit," and you gotta keep running, and you're covered in mud. Nick Suzuki's turning the puck over against Sam Bolduc and, um, haunting you. So
Mm.
it was truly just a disaster, and all day on Monday, I was thinking, "Hey, like, we could get to a point where we're not dealing with this anymore."
Right.
I took a deep breath in the jungle, and I put my hand on that palm tree, and and I didn't hear the monster,
Mm.
and that felt really nice for a day.
Yeah.
Knowing full well that the Islanders were the underdog on Monday night against a Kings team that snapped back into form under their new coach.
Yeah.
Really tough team to beat. Tough schedule spot at the end of a road trip out west. Different time zone, different times, puck drops. Like, they played a 10:30 game, then they played a 8 o'clock game, and now they're playing a 10:30 game again. Um, Knowing full well what was ahead, like, but I really took a second to take a deep breath in the jungle of this playoff race, and appreciate that I didn't hear that monster right behind me,
Mm.
chasing me down and eating me and sending me into the summer without the Islanders making the playoffs. And if those days are well and truly over for this season, I'm just gonna be so happy that if they can keep this roll going.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a lot of work to do there, and we are programmed to think that we can't have that.
Mm.
The journey continues. The monster's still out there. He just might not be breathing down our neck at this very moment, but come Thursday, we're definitely gonna hear him.
Yeah. Yeah, if they put together another 6-game winning streak a couple more times, then yeah, that monster will definitely be shut down at least for a little bit. But yeah, like you said, I mean the Kings, that was always going to be a tough game. They went to their struggles earlier this season, but they have gotten back into form. Not only form from earlier this season, but they almost look like they're Stanley Cup form from 10 years ago, which I was shocked to realize was 10 years ago. They basically this game was too late. I didn't take notes. It really doesn't matter. The long and short of it is the Kings were on their shit and the Islanders were not. That's how it works. And like they were stifling defensive team. I respect it as a lover of defensive hockey. It was a frustrating game to watch. Certainly, every time the Islanders tried to pass, the Kings picked it off. They just couldn't get anything going. Every time they skated the puck over the line, some King was on top of them. So they just didn't have it. But still, it was only 1-0 at the start of the third, and the Islanders had their best push. And here I am, my bleary eyed, long day at work. We had just recorded that long mailbag, and I was on fumes, and I was like, man, if they could tie this up and go to overtime, that's a victory right there. But the Kings ended up scoring again, and then an empty netter. So on one hand, you're just like, hey, look, you just won 6 in a row. This was going to be a tough game. On the other hand, it's like, yeah, you were there right there, and you could have put something past. What notes to who was it? Oh, it was Calvin
David
Pickard,
Riddick,
David
big,
Riddick.
yeah,
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
Calvin Pickard. It was, you could lump all those guys together. Dan
right.
Vladar,
Yeah,
Dave Riddick,
they're all
Calvin
the same guy,
Pickard.
right? Yeah,
It's
Lucas
yeah,
Dahlstall, they're all the same
Lucas
guy, basically.
Dostal,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so you could have gotten one, but you didn't, but I think, again, like we've been saying, they won 6 in a row. Like this was a tough one. At first, I was mad. I went to sleep. I woke up, and I'm like, no, it's okay, really. That being said, a couple of things I want to point out. One, uh, Matt Barzell took a penalty in the first period for slashing. This was on Drew Doughty. Doughty had fallen down, landed on the puck. Barzell tried to get the puck out from under him and was called for slashing. 3 things I want to say about this. One, that's the worst penalty call I've ever seen in my entire life. 2, when they showed the replay, I thought, maybe Barzell kind of hit Doughty in the nuts, which might have been why they called slashing on him. It's possible, I guess. And 3, seriously, that's the worst penalty call I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, come on, really? Come on. Like that,
Oh, that was
even Brendan
classic.
was like, that's not a penalty. Come
Yeah,
on.
I know, he filled in for Butch
Yeah.
in that moment. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, that was awful.
it's
Come on.
it was an you knew it was coming too.
Yeah.
As soon as he did it, I was like, I flashed back to what the Kempe
Mm.
goalie interference, and then the Nelson. high stick, and I'm like, well, they gave the Islanders a 5-on-3, so they're just looking for anything to
Yeah.
settle this down, and then that caused them to then call another bad penalty at the end of the period, and it's just,
Mm,
it was
yeah.
classic. It was classic.
It's ridiculous. I,
Um,
I mean, listen, we don't get in on the refs that often. They do have a hard job, and like stuff's going to go your way sometimes and not go your way. But man, come on, what are we doing?
yeah,
Like that happens 50 times a game.
that was
Like,
tough, and the
oh
best part was, like, Doughty knows
yeah,
what he was doing, because like,
sure,
2 seconds before that, he was just laying into Anders Lee in front of the net, just
of course,
cross-checking him to all hell,
right,
knowing that it would take a huge set of balls on those 2 refs to call
yeah,
another penalty while the Kings were
yeah,
defending 3 on 5.
pretty much,
So you tip your cap to him for the
yeah.
gamesmanship. Um,
And of course, the
but
Islanders did nothing with that power play, so
oh,
it
yeah,
didn't
I
matter.
mean, they were shook. They were
Yeah,
shook by the call, I think, like, and,
sure,
um,
right,
that
um,
period was
yeah,
Butch and Brendan we were like, "That was a weird."
yeah, very
uh,
strange period. The other thing I want to call out from that Kings game is the play of Kyle McLean. We talked about him before. You mentioned him a minute ago. To me, he was the best Islander on the ice. I know the underlying stats showed a different story, but to me, he was the guy who had the motor going. He looked like pretty dangerous. A couple of points in the first 2 periods. I've loved how this guy has just walked onto the Islanders and given them a whole new dimension and really kind of allowed Casey Cizikas freer to move up in the lineup. Matt Martin now has a lower body injury apparently, so Hudson Fasching stepped in on the line. Not great when you get shut out in your first game back, but I don't know if we could really blame that line of Fasching, McLean, and Clutterbuck. I would like to see some more of them, and we've talked before about how maybe it's time to give Martin a couple of days rest here and there. Although if he's hurt, that takes him out of it for a little bit. I do want to see that, but kudos to McLean for really coming in and not only not being a hindrance, but actively helping this team. Again, he's got a couple of goals already. He's shown a lot of jump, and it's not unusual for the Islanders to have a couple of maybe lackluster shifts in a row, and for that line to come out and really create some havoc. So good on him. Nice to see that, and we've been waiting for a thing like this, and hopefully we talked on our mailbag episode last night about maybe a future in which we get a real kid line of McLean, Matthew Maggio, and Ruslan Ishkahov. But that remains to be seen. It's up to Patrick Waugh, obviously, but be pretty interesting. But yeah, I'm happy with McLean. I'm glad he's apparently going to be here for the rest of the season due to some arcane AHL rule or whatever. Alan Fearing knows about it. You could ask Alan. I'm sure he'd be happy to tell you. Yeah, it's good to see. I'm glad to see it. Yeah, all right. Well, and that was the end of the winning streak. 3-0 loss in LA. They come home. We're going to talk about the next couple of games in a row. But on the whole, I mean, we've been saying it this whole time. I mean, nothing puts a pep in your step like your team winning 6 games in a row, and couldn't have come at a better time for the Islanders. Put them right back in the playoff mix. People are saying that this now all of a sudden people that had been ignoring the Islanders the whole time are like, oh yeah, they're totally going to make the playoffs. Every day, John Buccigross is like posting the same picture of Patrick Waugh saying the Islanders are going to the playoffs. It's all Patrick Waugh. Dude, we don't need your help. Please go away. Just please leave us alone.
Don't call our games.
Please don't call our games. And so, people are turning the tide. Mike Kelly had a great thread about stuff, the changes that have been under Waugh that have been going on. And it's fun to see. And we say it all the time, Freej. Meaningful games in March. And
Meaningful
here
games
we
in
are.
March.
And they are meaningful. And they need
Yep.
to keep them up.
Yeah. I'm glad you called that thread by Mike Kelly too.
Yeah.
Because there was there were a lot of people when the Islanders were scuffling, and we kept saying like the nightmare scenario of the season is that we're gonna be put in a loony bin because we're gonna be explaining to people all summer like, oh
Yeah.
man, it's a tough season for the Islanders, to say yes, but you don't understand, like, this team was good enough. They were good enough, and they'd be like, dude, they finished. Their
Yeah.
season was over by the trade deadline, and like, well, it's the most talented team we've ever had. Like, how many times have you heard that?
Mhm.
And people are like, okay, really? Like this, you're old, you're slow, etc. And they don't need to. If your team misses the playoffs by
Mhm.
10 points, like they don't need to get into the context of, well, we weren't. We just were playing like assholes. It had nothing to do with the fact that these guys have no trade clauses or whatever. But now that they have turned this ship around with Patrick Waugh at the helm, which I by the way, I do not take that for granted that this guy is coaching the Islanders. It's so cool just to see him every day and just
Right.
to hear it. Like when
Yeah.
you know how like right before the puck drops, they do the the pan over to the bench. Like they'll show the goalie, and then they go to
Mm.
the bench, and you'll see the coach kind of just waiting for the puck to drop like everybody else, but they have to show him. And it's so funny. Just I still
Yeah.
do a little bit of a head shake every time
Well, yeah.
they do that. But yeah, people are noticing that this team is turning it around under Waugh, and uh, it's funny that they were like, the Islanders were written off, and nobody thought, oh man, like maybe the Islander fans. We'll now find out if Islander fans were in fact just loony. By when they kept screaming from the top of their lungs, like, no, this team is good. Like they just need a proper coach and some breaks to go their way and to get
Yeah.
healthy. And it's just been a weird, weird season. And it turns out we were right. And all those people who didn't. There was one person who said that the Islanders just don't have the roster to play Waugh's system.
Yes.
Um, I don't know how you would know that. First of all, I couldn't tell you what his system was with the Quebec Rempart
Right.
was, but perhaps that person could. And the answer was yes, they are, because we've said it all along. Like, oh no, the Islanders are good. Like, remember they traded for Bo Horvat last year
Yeah.
in that lose trade? Like they have good players. They just didn't have a good coach. They had a
Mm.
coach who somehow made the playoffs with them in his first season by hook or crook,
Mm.
and then was completely out of his depth in year two. And now they have a real coach with like a real philosophy. The team is galvanized, and you're seeing it. And Mike Kelly like spelled it out. Like couldn't have done a better job of spelling it out.
Mm.
And I didn't really see anybody say anything like, "Oh man, that looks right." Maybe we were wrong about this team.
Yeah.
It was just eyeball emoji. Islanders have won 6 in a row.
Mm.
Thank you. We know. Brock Nelson is 1 goal away from his 3rd straight 30-goal season. This guy is so underrated.
Mm.
Yeah, did you know who he was 7 months ago? Like, no, come on.
Yeah.
You found out who Brock Nelson was along with a lot of other people in your industry when he beat Connor McDavid in that wrist shot competition at the All-Star game a year ago, right? Like, it's just
Basically, yeah.
yeah, and no, it's felt good. It's felt good to watch this team go from out of the playoff picture to in the playoff picture, and all these people knowing how much it's making all these people squirm. Like, I got to eat a lot of words here. I'm gonna have to eat a lot of crow because I talked about how much this team was not old and boring and unlikable and all this stuff, and now like they're pretty cool. Like they're a cool watch. They've got the
Yeah.
coach. There's not a team in the league, I don't think, that wouldn't want Patrick Waugh as their head coach right now. And I'm
Mm.
I'm not being hyperbolic either. I think perhaps the only team I could think of would be the Canucks, because I think that fan base
Sure.
really
Of
likes Rick
course.
Tocchet.
Sure.
But even like old guards like John Cooper, uh, I think Lightning fans, if we said, oh, we'll trade Waugh for Cooper, they'd be like, absolutely, just because not only is he really good at it, it seems,
Mm.
and really likable, but he's cool as fuck. Like this
Yeah.
guy is so cool.
Yeah.
I want him to be. I feel like he's so into it. Like he's so into this mission that he's on,
Yeah.
and he's so grateful to be a New York Islander. You can just see it, and it's very Trotzian in a way. It's
Mm.
different, but it is Trotzian. I could see him just signing up to be a volunteer firefighter in like Jericho or something over the summer. Like, how'd you spend your summer, Patrick? Did you go back to Quebec? He's like, no, actually, I wanted to give back to the community and really plant some roots here on the island. So I became a volley in Jericho. I
I
was
got a
fighting.
I got a job on a charter boat out of Mauritius. We go out there, we catch fluke, we catch flounder. It's a whole thing. The guys, they're great guys. They're great guys. I
Sure.
love these guys.
It's good. Yeah, a lot of love for these guys. The passion,
Right.
the confidence that they showed, the
Yeah.
resiliency on days where we don't maybe
Mm.
catch as much fish as we want. We come back the next morning, and that day we do, and we know that it was the work we put in.
Right.
And yeah, it just feels it feels real.
Right.
And I've said it before. I don't think the Islander fans, they can sniff pandering,
Mm.
and phoniness really quickly. You'd think, um, and does not feel that way. And yeah, it's been what a joy it's been. It's
Yeah.
completely one man has just completely changed how I'm looking at this team right now. It's
Mm.
made everything so much more likable, so much more fun. Just I have a pep in my step because of Patrick Waugh. And I was having this conversation with one of my friends, or a couple of my friends, the other day. Like during the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry, I was younger, so I
Mm.
didn't really have a side. But after the fact, as I kind of learned about it more, and because the Islanders had Chris Osgood and I loved him, I was a Red Wings guy in that
Yeah.
rivalry. Like I would have been on the Red Wings side of the
Mm.
French and Indian War, right? Like that was my pick. But now I look back on it, I'm like, no man, I'm Benedict Arnolding this. Like I'm an Avalanche guy. Give me Peter. Where's Peter Forsberg? Where are my boys at? This guy Patrick Waugh. Like
Yeah.
he just was not on my radar
No.
like at all. And
Yeah, we
now I'm
talked
looking
about
at
that.
I'm
Yeah.
I want to watch that blood feud documentary over with my new Avalanche colored lenses and
Right.
knowing how great this guy is. And
Yeah. Right.
it's
Yeah.
I could talk about him, and I have, and I think Emily's just like sick of it. I'm basically setting a place for him at my dinner table at this point. He
That'd
just
be
might show
awesome.
up. He just might show up.
You never know.
Gotta have
You
it.
guys,
Gotta have it ready.
you'll see him at Dario's. Grab a
Yeah,
slice or
yeah,
something like that. Yeah, no, it's been great. And like we said, 1996 Patrick Waugh would not have made a lot of sense on the Islanders, but 2024 Patrick Waugh definitely does, because he definitely
yeah.
feels the opportunity is here for him, and I think he knows what's at stake, and he's appreciative of this, and he is connected to this
Yes.
team for sure, and it's
Yeah,
fun to
because
see.
he if like us, like he doesn't do anything without it being genuine and 100%,
Right.
right? Like there's nothing phony about him.
Right. Oh yeah.
Um, and our longtime listener and good friend of ours, Frank Ventimiglia, said that the Islanders should do a season ticket holder event where you get to hug him. And I was like, I think Patrick Waugh would appreciate that more than
Sure.
we would, because he loves us just as
Right.
much, I think, as we love him.
Oh my
And
god.
it I think I said this once before. It does feel like almost a little Robin Leonard-y, feels
Yeah.
Trotzian. He's becoming one of those
Mm,
guys right before our eyes. And I think now that we've had those experiences with Trotz, and it
mm,
abruptly ended, and with Leonard, and it abruptly ended, um, with some other folks who did had similar endings. Like I think we've learned to just take it in stride and not take it for granted, and appreciate like every moment of it. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is just
yeah.
live the Patrick Waugh experience, and
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Soak it all in. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree. And again, as long as they keep stringing wins together, it
Right.
makes it
Yes.
very easy
Yes.
to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is great to see one man do make all these meaningful changes, and it does make you wonder what the hell the previous guy was doing. But that's a question, I guess, for another time. We are going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to look ahead at the games coming up on the schedule. We're going to talk about some rivals at the trade deadline, and we're going to talk some music. Sure, why not? Meet us on the other side. And now, a word from our sponsors. First is VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, mugs, and more, featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey also carries our Al Arbor and the Island merch, and our portion of the sales always go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. Use the code ANXIETY20 to save 20% off an order of 2 items. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a 2022 Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. The fine folks at FOCO have 2 new Islanders bobbleheads commemorating the Stadium Series game at MetLife Stadium. Order your Ilya Sorokin or Sparky bobblehead today at FOCO.com or click the link in the podcast description. These are limited to 124 pieces, so act now. That's FOCO, FOCO.com. Okay, so the Islanders have 3 games this week. Real quick reminder that our next episode is going to be recorded next Monday. I actually won't be around on Sunday. going to see Dune Part 2 with my buddy Gio in the city, so I don't think I'm going to be back in time to record. If we are, great, but as of right now, plans are to record on Monday, so the episode will go live on Tuesday. But between now and then, the Islanders have 3 games. They are at Buffalo on Thursday, technically the final day of their 4-game road trip. Then they are home to face the Ottawa Senators, 12:30 on Saturday. Another matinee. Never good, but we'll have to see. And then they follow that up with another matinee, this time at the Garden on Sunday, aka St. Patrick's Day. Let's look at the Sabres game first. As of right now, the Sabres are absolutely putting the boots to the Red Wings 7-2 after 2 periods. Hopefully they can hang on and take that win, which obviously would help the Islanders a lot, because if they win that game, then the Islanders are back in the final playoff berth. The bad news is the Islanders need to go into Buffalo and do that to the Sabres, who made a bunch of meaningful pickups at the trade deadline, the biggest one being Bo Byram, coming over from Colorado, who's pretty good. Mike and I were talking before we came on about how the Sabres, they traded Eric Johnson, the husk of Eric Johnson, to the Flyers. I want to talk about them towards the end of the show, at the trade deadline, and then put out a tweet saying that they have a new core 4. Rasmus Dahlin, Marcus Samuelsson, I believe is the guy's name, Owen Power, obviously, and now Bowen Byram, who are 4 very, very good defensemen. Take nothing away from those guys. They're all really, really good. But, playing in goal is a guy who just got off the bus from Poughkeepsie. And their number 1 center is Alex Tuck. Again, a nice player. I don't know if he's necessarily a first-line center. So Sabres still have some work to do. But this is a bit of a scary game. That said, we've been talking now for about 45 minutes about how this Islanders team seems to recognize their situation, understand the moment, want to rise to the moment with the killer instinct. And I think they're going to go into Buffalo looking to take very, very important 2 points. How do you see this Sabres game shaping up? I should say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you that this might end up being lost number 2 in a row?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. Like I think that it's going to be a tricky spot. Like that first game back on the other side of the country after a road trip
Right.
through California is a cliche, but it's never easy. Obviously, the Sabres are trying their own little cute little desperation playoff push here. They've got the new bodies in and all that, but um, I'm trying not to worry about it because I'm trying to trust the Islanders more. As we've said on the show, like you can love the Islanders, don't trust the Islanders. But now I'm starting to trust that at least like that I can trust that they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot
Right.
as often as they did. So whether they win or lose, like I do believe that they'll hopefully have their game in order. And the daunting thing about this game, and the reason that that Kings game, we'll look maybe look back on it and be like, damn it, was that the schedule obviously gets a little tougher on the other side of that Senators game, and the thing is like Rangers, Hurricanes, right after that, and the Islanders have a couple of just they've got a little bit more of a rumble than what we've seen these past few games, and um, so then you get a little bit worried. But this isn't that team where we could point to a loss. They maybe win 4 out of 5, and then they lose to the Kraken or something in like a
Mm.
no-show effort. We're like, oh well, that's the start of a 6-game losing streak.
Mm.
It just doesn't feel like we're watching that team anymore, and that really calms the nerves.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think we are going to need to trust them to take that game, because it is very important for them
Yep.
to take it. And like, listen, again, the Sabres are a team not going to the playoffs. As much as they may have added some talent, this is still on paper a team that the Islanders should beat. So as long as they keep playing what the way they've been playing, should be a game that they can take. Same goes for the game against the Ottawa Senators. Now, here's the problem: it's not less about the Senators, more about the time of day, because this is a matinee game. And I know what we're all thinking. The Islanders suck at these. And in fact, the last time they played a matinee game was that game against the Flames that we were talking about earlier, where they just, I don't know, hit snooze and didn't even bother to show up. Again, basically, it's so funny that they're playing Buffalo and Ottawa back to back, because it's the same exact situation. Like, this is a team on paper the Islanders should beat these guys, but things could get away from them in a hurry. The Senators can score. Shane Pinto is going to be playing on the island, so he's going to be interested in that. We answered a question about him on our mailbag episode, but again, it's a matinee game, and I don't want to think. I want Patrick Watt to kill the matinee hex the way he's killed the back to back hex, the not being able to string games to wins together hex. This is your next one, man. You got to kill this, because I can't go into every single. They have a bunch of matinees coming up in the latter part of this season, particularly the end of this month, and the Islanders need to start winning them. Are you going to be in the building for the game against the Senators at UBS at 12:30 on Saturday?
No, I'm not gonna be there. My brother's gonna be going.
Ah,
Um, and yeah, it is scary. You got like what as you said that hopefully he just kills this hex. They're also 0-7 um on the second night of their own back to backs right
oh
now.
my
So
God.
hopefully that
Yeah.
hex gets killed against the Rangers the next day.
Yeah.
But you got to get 4 out of 6 here.
Mm,
I think you can maybe could survive with 3 out of 6. Get a win and a loser point.
yeah.
Um, but then you're really playing with fire because of who's waiting for you on the other end of like I said of that Rangers game. You got the Hurricanes and basically a playoff game in Detroit against the Red Wings, who are, as we said, in a tailspin. You'd expect that they'll start trending in the other direction too. No team's just gonna go and lose like 13 in a row, and you'd think that the Islanders would be getting a much better game from Detroit than what they're showing right now. Um, and then they play Winnipeg at home, and then Jersey at home in a back to back at home.
Yeah.
So it's just it's gonna be a tricky little jaunt here before they go into Florida, and then they have a game. Is it a back to back? No, it's not a back to back. They play in Tampa and then they play in Philly. So
Yeah,
they
no.
got it.
No, it is a back to back. Oh no, it's not. Yeah. No, it's there's a day in between.
Yeah. There's a day off, but the point is like
Yeah.
there's some serious landmines
Mm.
um, coming up on the schedule, and it does soften up again. Like the Islanders, I made the mistake a couple of days ago of like going through and clicking on games that I thought the Islanders would be sizable favorites in, and like calculating the points. And by the time I got to April the 1st, the game against the Flyers, I stopped the exercise because I was just like I can't do this to myself. And
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah.
yeah, the Flyers have a really tough schedule coming up as well. So the dust, the dust isn't going to settle if the Islanders don't beat Buffalo or don't get 4 out of 6 against the Sens, Sabres, and Rangers. The dust is not going to settle for a while, and that's going to be that's when the monster comes back, right? Like knowing that God, we got to find another win streak among these last 15 or so games. That's when it gets scary. So if you beat Buffalo, all of a sudden you buy yourself a situation where, oh, maybe the Senators game isn't a must win, but if they lose that one, then the Rangers games becomes one, and you're kind of like kicking the must win can down the line like they did
Right.
when they beat the Ducks. Like they're like, oh, like we can. The Kings game isn't a must win, the first non must win for this team in quite a bit. We can punt it down the line, and um, but yeah, so in order for that Senators game not to be a must win and a matinee in front of a bunch of kids, the Islanders need to take care of business against the Sabres.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. These are scary times and scary opponents, even though maybe on paper they aren't the scariest opponents. But the scariest by far this week is Sunday at the Garden again against the Rangers at 1 p.m. This will be the first Islanders Rangers game since that disaster at MetLife Stadium that I don't need to remind everybody of. 5 of 6, I think, is 100% right. 6 of 6 would be absolutely fantastic. Again, the Rangers, I don't want to tempt fate. I don't want to like spit in the eyes of the hockey gods here, but I don't know, man. Are they the most vulnerable good team in the league? I don't know. Like I just they get very lucky. We've talked about this a lot. They're I keep hearing about how, Mika Zibanejad had gone 30 whatever games without scoring a 5-on-5 goal. Didn't seem to slow them down one bit. Like it's just, and that's beyond that's just game to game. I'm not even talking about like just having all-stars fall into their lap because they only want to play for the Rangers. Like that's the big picture thing. But I look at these 3 games and I see 3 winnable games.
Yep.
And I'm scared. And I know the Islanders need these points, and I know the Islanders know they need these points. I just need them to take them. And if they do, I think we're looking at a team that's going to go to the playoffs. If they don't, then I think their playoff push is going to end, going to have died in LA. And I don't want that to have happened either. So I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to tempt fate. I'm not trying to denigrate the Rangers or whatever, but they always play well, it seems, at the Garden, and they won't have Matt Rempe around to intimidate them with his CTE or whatever it is that he brings to the table all the time. Yeah, they need, needless to say that they need to win this game, and please win it, because I'm going to be in a movie theater and I don't want to come out and find out something bad happened. So please win the game. Thank you very much. What do you have to say about this Rangers Islanders game? They're always scary, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't want to. It's funny that the Rangers can tempt the hockey gods all they want, and it never seems to bite
Doesn't
them
matter. Doesn't matter.
in the
Yeah.
butt. But as an Islander fan, um, I had a chance to touch the Stanley Cup when I was in 7th grade. I think it was at Nassau Coliseum, or 8th grade, and I did
Yeah.
touch it because I knew. You
Wow,
know?
that's
Yeah,
dedication. I
I
picked it
know.
up. They came. I was at one of those Coliseum games, and they're like, "You want to hold it?" I'm like, "Yeah, hell yeah!" And I picked it up.
I know. I regret it, of course. Couldn't believe that. I thought maybe, oh, if I don't touch this
Right.
team with Yanni Ninema can make a run. But I just feel like that's part of our lot in life, and they just don't even think about it because they can tempt the hockey gods and then trip the hockey gods and kick them while they're down, and the hockey gods still bend the knee. It's crazy
Mm,
to watch.
yeah.
It's wild. I mean, and the Rampy thing is just perfect,
Mm,
right? Like, here's a guy who comes in. The entire hockey universe is like, this is great. Like, it's great to see this kind of player getting a chance, and it's something we haven't seen in years, right? Like, there
mm,
hasn't been a guy like this in years, and it's exciting, and the whole hockey world's talking about him. And you, me, and everybody who hates the Rangers could tell you, I could have sat those people down and be like, yeah, this is gonna end badly, right? Like, you guys all know where this is going. You didn't? Are you watching what's going on here? Like, this is
right.
this is gonna end badly, and lo and behold, it
Yep.
ended badly the other night. And now people are like, this kid's got he's got to learn. He's got to
Mm,
learn. Like, what do you mean he's got to learn? You guys all just told him how he was like the coolest player in the league for a
right.
little while. Why? What do you think he was going to do? He was going to keep going out there trying to take guys' heads off because he's been encouraged to do so
Right.
by the lot of you. So I'm not surprised with how this has ended. I
Mm,
like you said, like, you don't want to poke the bear at all, but
right.
they are the most vulnerable team, and the numbers show it. I think at 5-on-5, only the Sharks give up more high danger scoring chances this year than the Rangers on average. They've given up the 31st most rush chances against
Wow.
at 5-on-5. So this is it's a team that if they weren't the Rangers, like if this was the Minnesota Wild we were talking
Ah,
about,
right.
um, the entire analyst universe would be like, this is a paper tiger.
Right.
But it's not, because it's the Rangers, and this stuff just kind of happens, and the next thing you know, they're going up against Dustin Tokarski in the Eastern Conference Final or
And
something,
Louis
right? Like,
Domingue. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Louis Domingue or
Yeah.
Sebastian Caron is the e-bug for somebody and has to play a meaningful sample against them in the playoffs.
One last thing about Rempe is, I was thinking about it. If Chris Drury is half as smart as people want to keep telling us that he is, this summer he will trade Rempe to some dumb team looking
Right.
to toughen up and completely wash his hands of that upcoming, if not, current fiasco right away. Because Rangers fans will find somebody else to cheer for. That's not a problem. Oh, why'd you trade that guy? They'll find somebody else to cheer for. It's not a big problem. But you could save yourself the headache of having to kind of keep, justifying this guy's ridiculous actions by just trading him to, I don't know, the Leafs or wherever, and make him their problem, and then they have to worry about when he gets suspended. So if I was Chris Drury, I would do that, but I'm not, and thank God. Anyway, so yeah, these are all going to be tough. The Islanders need to come away points, at least 5, if not more. Again, I trust the Islanders to know that, and I want them to act accordingly, and we'll see. Okay, so the trade deadline is passed. We talked a lot about it on our mailbag episode. We also put out a free episode of the trade deadline questions for everybody on the main feed, so you can listen to us talk about kind of things that went down or didn't go down in the case of the Islanders. One team that was very active was the Pittsburgh Penguins, who finally traded Jake Gensel, not to the Rangers, who apparently put together a pretty good package for him, but to the Carolina Hurricanes, who, for whatever reason, still need goal scoring. I don't know why, but they do. And I think he might be playing tonight for them. They gave up almost nothing. Michael Bunting and a bunch of prospects, whatever, who cares? And you have a lot to say about the Penguins.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot. Obviously, Kyle Dubas is Renaissance painting. hanging a little bit crooked in the museum these days. Not quite what we all thought it was going to be, but this was it was fun to watch the Penguins have to trade a bunch of guys off, and it's also fun to hear people talk about how this is such a departure for the Penguins, and talk about how they're shocked by this. They're shocked by what's happened, like as if they're coming back from the war. Like they're shocked by the brutality and the gore that they're seeing. Dude, they're just having a bad season. Like I don't understand. It's okay. They're all going back home in a couple of months. But yeah, it's just delicious watching this Penguins implode like this.
Yeah, it's a prime example of how the hockey media at large just has no idea what the fan experience is at all,
Right.
and they think that they are the voice of hockey fans when no, you're just supposed to give us information. Like you're the go between the league and the teams and us. Like you're not it's not the opposite way, right? Like you're not
Mm.
the one speaking out to society at large for hockey fans like Chris Johnston thinks he is. Like it's not that's not how it works. Like it's the other way around. Your back is towards the teams and you're facing us and it's not the other way around. Um and in this situation it couldn't be more obvious that they have their situation. They're misreading the room because it's every show that you listen to post trade deadline and Crosby talking about how he gave that quote about you know the how does it feel to watch the team trade Jake Gensel, Sid?
Mm.
And he said, I don't know, I don't know. You got to ask management or whatever it was. And you would have thought that he said that he wants to fight Kyle Dubas outside of PPG Pants Arena because like,
Right.
oh my god,
Yeah.
if Sid is saying something like that,
Mm.
this is a big deal
Mm.
for each. But and then they follow it up, and every single one of them follow it up like this is hard to watch.
Mm.
Watching this team that of Crosby and Malkin and Letang know that this season is over and they're in a situation that they've never been in before. They're it's really just hard to watch. No, it isn't. It's a joy. This is great.
Yeah.
I am loving every second of it. I
Mm.
would love a camera inside their locker room before and after every game to watch how these guys care right now about playing,
Mm.
and how downtrodden they are, knowing that they've got 20 more games of hockey to play that are going to be end up being meaningless because these guys have ruined our lives for a decade.
Right.
I don't like Sidney Crosby. Okay, he's a good dude. Great. I hate him because he beat the shit out of the Islanders for most of my life. Like this,
Seriously.
I'm loving this. I hope that he signs an extension and the Penguins never make the playoffs again. I why do people think that this is like the worst thing that's ever happened to an athlete? It's not like remember Jay Bouwmeester famously was like had played
Yeah.
1,000 games and never made the playoffs. I think now it's Jeff Skinner
Yeah.
has never made the playoffs and that's how they're treating this. Sidney Crosby made the playoffs 16 years in a row. He won 3
Yeah.
Stanley Cups. He won a gold medal or 2. He's he's on stamps, I'm sure. He's
Yeah.
got nothing to worry about. Can we feel bad for this guy?
Mm.
You feel
Yeah.
bad for him? I feel bad for Kyle Okposo. Like that's who I feel bad for. Like he signed that extension in Buffalo
Mm.
or signed that deal in Buffalo and an extension, never made the playoffs with them, and now he goes to Florida to do it. Like that's a little awkward, but um, yeah, this is a situation that I'm loving, and the best part is that so many people thought that the Penguins were going to be good this season
Mm.
before the year, and we are like, we watched this team a lot last year, and I don't know if this team's good. Is Renaissance painting or not? I don't care that Riley Smith is there, or they traded for Eric Carlson when they already had an Eric Carlson and Chris Letang. Like you guys
Mm.
are bending over backwards to make this team seem legitimate when if Lamoriello had done similar stunts, lose doubling down on a triple down once again shows that he's trying to win the 1997 Stanley Cup.
So Rob Rossi, who covers the Penguins for the Athletic, put out a tweet that apparently PK Subban on ESPN was very highly critical of Dubas's moves and what he was thinking and how he let this happen. And Rossi was like, "I've never seen somebody take cheap shots at a general manager like this." And I replied, or at least quote tweeted him saying, "Why don't you try having a couple of analysts pretend to be asleep during one of your games, including the guy who you're complaining about right now, or having, one of the more another studio analyst who also happens to be one of the most popular hockey podcasters on the planet, openly rooting against your team and like hoping they don't make the playoffs. That stuff happens to us all the time.
Yeah.
So miss me with any sympathy for Sidney Crosby happening to him, because I don't care. Like, this is how we live every day. It was last year. That was just part of the deal. Oh, these guys are boring. Oh, I hate them. Oh, they suck. Oh, they're old. Oh, they can't have mustache. We hear this stuff all the time. And so if it's Sidney Crosby's turn to hear some criticisms, well, too bad. It's just for the first time in 16 years, he's going to have to hear. And, but it gets back to what you were saying. Like, the disconnect is like, on one hand, for Sportsnet, like, I get that, you want to kind of focus on guys that are going to make for good TV and like, have this sort of historic significance and whatnot. But the rest of us are sick of him, just absolutely sick to death of him. And I think we can speak for everybody else in the division: Flyers, Devils, Rangers, Hurricanes, Blue Jackets. We're all sick of this guy. Like,
Yeah.
he could just go away. If this team just went away, we would be very, very happy. And I think Penguins fans, to their credit, would understand that.
Yeah, and that's how sports work.
Right.
I hate this guy because he doesn't play for the team that I
Right.
root for.
Yeah.
He actively plays against them, and
Yeah.
I watched him buy a call against Brian Straight, like, pick on someone your own size, Sid, to eliminate the Islanders in Nassau Coliseum in 2013, and that was brutal. That's part of it, right? It's not just
Mm.
the points that he racked up against the Islanders. We all know the graphic that shows up every time that the Islanders play the Penguins.
Right.
Like, it's not just that; it's also the breaks that he would catch by, Sidney Crosby would look at Wes McCauley and just like give
Yeah.
him a look, and Wes would be like, "I guess I missed something because that's
I
that's
still
Sidney Crosby and that's Joe Finley. So obviously there's a
Yeah.
fucking penalty here."
I've still have never seen a person get called for a penalty and then the ref just go, "Oh, excuse me," and then just take it back. I've
Yeah.
never seen. Only Sidney Crosby gets that. I've
Right.
seen. Again, I've said this before. I saw Travis Hamonic get thrown out of a game for quote unquote high sticking some Penguin. Oh, it was Brooks Orpik. And then upon review, it turns out Orpik high sticked himself.
Yep.
But the Islanders had to play a game without their second whatever best defenseman at the time, and of course they lost. Like,
Yeah.
this is why we hate these guys.
Yeah,
Like,
we
it's
hate
just so I'm sorry if they're going to go through a bad stretch, and they're going to do it with the GM who everybody loves. It's
Yep.
even better.
Oh, this is great. Oh, Kyle Dubas is
Right.
there a person in sports with a tougher job than Kyle Dubas?
Right. Yeah.
What?
Sure. Yeah. Come on, give me a break. I
What?
hope Kevin Cheveldayoff, forget about the Islanders. I
Yeah,
hope Kevin Cheveldayoff is like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Tougher
Yeah.
job. I live in Winnipeg. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Oh my god.
Come on.
That's you got to think about what Kyle's thinking.
Right. Yeah.
You got to feel for Kyle right now. He went for it, and now
Yeah.
he's got to have that conversation with Sid.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude! It's so pathetic. It's so eerie and weird, and because then you also have the other kind of thing in the orbit here is that the Maple Leafs trade deadline was
Yeah.
met
Underwhelming?
with
Yeah.
yes, underwhelming, and I think met with a lot of consternation, and that consternation stems from, oh man, like, I wish that Kyle Dubas was still the GM. He would never do this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who traded for Nick Foligno and Luke Shen, and like the
Right.
rewriting and the revisionist history here is just
Yeah.
insane.
The
You
guy who
you
had to send a first round pick to the Hurricanes because he wanted to get rid of Patrick Marleau's contract would never
Right.
have done this, right?
It's so good. It's the characters involved here. Meanwhile, like, the Islanders have Patrick Waugh, right? Like, it's just like this era of good feelings has kind of returned with the Islanders, and I'm watching with my feet up, just eating that popcorn, watching Kyle Dubas, who, by the way, said, and we believe him. I think Kyle Dubas is a genuine, emotional guy, and what he did was raw when he said it would be here or nowhere about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and now
Yeah.
not only is it somewhere else, but it's also now we feel bad for him for taking the job.
Right.
Like, what? You guys said that you believed him when he's talked about how hard this is going to be on his family. He doesn't want to put his family through something as difficult as being the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs without some, I guess more money or whatever. and then he goes to now we all feel bad for him for doing it times 10 because this is the hardest job in hockey. Get a hold of yourselves, please. Please get a hold of yourselves, and take a look around the room and all the fans that are like, "You might like Sidney Crosby because he scored that overtime goal against Team USA, but
Mm.
I could give a shit who wins the fucking Olympics, man. I don't care if
Yeah,
it's
I don't
Canada,
care.
I don't care if it's Slovakia, the
Mm.
Germany, USA. All I care about is the New York Islanders winning a Stanley Cup. If the New York Islanders were in the Olympics, like, I would root for them over the United States, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is how it works here, and I've got no there's not a shred of my being, and I felt like, am I missing something? Am I the bad person here for not feeling a fiber of
Mm.
sympathy for this guy? And the answer is no.
No.
I'm not. Like, I don't like this guy because that's how sports work. Like, he's a villain in my world, in my fandom world, and
Yeah.
I could sign me up for this guy missing 6 more playoffs and going through this every year at the trade deadline.
Yep.
All you gotta think is Sid. Oh, please tell me more about it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
it's hard not to root for a guy like that, right? No, it's fucking easy. It's very
Yeah.
easy.
It's very easy. No, I don't think any of us bad at all. We're fans. And listen, again, I worked at the AP, like you work in sports media. We get it. People stop being, fans after working in the business for a long time, but I don't ever want to lose that. Like I just don't there are certain
Right.
guys I just don't like. I will never like Mark Messier. Never. ESPN can put him on TV 24/7. I will never like this guy. And the fact that they keep referencing him as Hall of Famer Mark Messier, 6-time Stanley Cup champion Mark Messier, captain of the Rangers Mark Messier. I know who Mark Messier is. I don't care. I don't like him. And I never will. And so it's just, these guys are going to keep force feeding us this kind of stuff. And if it's not force feeding us Sidney Crosby, they're force feeding us the Leaf stuff, which I
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
we've talked it ad nauseum about.
Yeah, we'll give the Leafs a break here, although, we do wanna
Right.
talk. But the one other thing I wanna talk about with the trade deadline, we talked a lot about the Islanders not doing anything and how we felt about it on the mailbag, but I wanted to save this for our show, that it the I understand I said this on the mailbag too, like, I understand that part of the fun of sports and is, watching transactions and trades and getting to know new players and all that, and it's fun. I get it.
Mm.
I understand it, but to me, I think that the reason that's fun is because if you spend the day in, suspense, like,
Mm.
that's the best part, is, like, waiting all day and Ryan Smith is all of a sudden a New York Islander, right? Like, it's actually the as Barry Trotz would say, it's actually, like, the journey and not the destination.
Right.
And that's what I felt like. The Islanders were at least buyers and were conceivably in the mix, and Lamoriello doesn't make a trade, and also that we hear it all the time, especially on July 1st, that, and the trade deadline, that the moves that you don't make often are the best ones the best ones of the day, right?
Right.
But with the Islanders, of course, it's a negative that lose slept through the trade deadline. So
Right.
with that in mind, frankly, and all the criticism that was thrown at Lamoriello for not buying, I wanted to bring up a list of players,
Mm.
and these players have been connected to the Islanders for one reason or another, and I try to limit the timeline to when Lou took over. So post Tavares, with
Mhm.
the first year of Trotz, this is this is a pretty incomplete list. I kind of came up with it off the top of my head, so I want to see if you can come up with any names that I'm missing here.
Okay.
And the point I'm trying to make here is that I'm going to read these names to you. And these were people that you and I too, like, we're part of this. We
Mhm.
really wanted. Like, we wanted
Sure.
these guys on the Islanders. We got excited by the prospect of them. The Islanders were linked to them. This is great. And I just want you to think about, if the Islanders, how much worse off the Islanders would be had they made these trades and not or acquisitions and not the ones that with the roster they actually have.
Mhm.
Considering who would have to go in the other direction, cap casualties, all that
Right.
stuff.
I'm
So
excited
I'm
for
going to
this.
read you a list of luminaries. These are some future former Islanders, or former future Islanders, if you will.
Mm.
Of course, Mike Riley, he was crossed off the list because he is a New York Islander, and
Right.
so is Robert Bortuzzo, by the way. Sonny Milano, Mike Hoffman, who
Yeah.
scored against the Islanders for the first time in 32 games
Wow.
the other night. It was his first goal in 32 games.
Yeah.
Mike Hoffman. Naz Kadri, I think you could say still a good player in the NHL. Would
Sure.
much rather Bo Horvat. Anthony Duclair, sure.
Mm.
Vladimir Tarasenko, sure. Johnny Gaudreau,
Oof, that's where you lose it.
famously dubbed one of the top 5 contracts in the NHL by
That's right.
the Athletics contract model. Johnny Gaudreau. Jacob Chikrin.
Mhm. Still might become an Islander, but
Yes,
at
no, who
the same
knows?
time,
He's
yeah.
still there's I think him and Tarasenko and Duclair are still on this list. They'll find their way. Alex DeBrincat.
Mm,
I don't know. He hasn't been lighting the world on fire in
right,
Detroit.
right.
Jason Zucker, who went to Nashville with Barry Trotz and had been, I think there was a point where the Islanders were like there were rumors the Islanders would trade Nelson to the Wild for Jason Zucker.
Oh
Just
god,
keep that in mind.
that would be bad.
Samuel Girard, decent player.
Mm,
Kevin Fiala, I think he'd be the one on the list that I'd be like, like I think that of all these guys, he'd be the one that um, makes the most sense to me. Ryan Suter,
mm.
he's
Oh
been a
yeah,
disaster. He's been a disaster for the Stars this season. They got Chris Tanev or whatever the Tanev is
mm,
to replace him. And yeah, that's it. So like you think about these names.
mm.
There are a couple other that I'm sure will come to our mind
Yeah,
as we go through, but the Islanders like end up striking out on all these guys, but in reality, like maybe I think Fiala would be the only one that I'd say maybe he'd because it would probably be it would be Kadri or Horvat, right? You'd absolutely take Horvat.
yeah,
Gaudreau means no Horvat.
right.
Um, I think even Fiala probably means no Horvat. DeBrincat, I don't really think that the Islanders, with Barzal up there with the Horvat, and did they need him? I don't know, but
Yeah,
it just goes like it's an uninspiring list after the fact,
right.
especially the Johnny Gaudreau situation, and we were distraught when they didn't get him.
Yeah,
So
right. So DeBrincat and Kadri are both intriguing because they both have, I think, 55 or 54 points. That would put them fifth on the Islanders right now. They would have
fifth,
less points than Brock Nelson,
yeah,
or just about the same amount of points as Brock Nelson, but less goals. So again, like that's debatable, but you wouldn't have Horvat, who has incredible chemistry with Matt Barzal, and now apparently Brock Nelson as well. I haven't been shy about criticizing Kyle Palmieri, but he's now on 20 goals for the season. He'll
right.
probably end up with 25, maybe even 30 if he stays hot and has another couple of 2-goal games. So it's hard to really argue with that. It finally took him a while, but it finally came around. I think this happened under Lamoriello, but maybe I'm wrong. You could remind me. Was Matt Duchene under Lamoriello, or was Snow still in charge when we were doing the plane tracking for Matt Duchene?
Oh,
Uh,
good
oh, you
question.
know what? That was 2017-18. Now that I think about it,
Yeah,
yeah. So it was
but
still
even so,
Snow.
like and he
Yeah,
signed a deal with. He's been good this year for the Stars, but he signed a deal with the Predators that they had to
right.
get out of, right?
Basically, yeah, yeah.
So I mean, and Patrick Laine, by the way, should be on this
Oh
list.
yeah, right. Yeah,
He's been another guy that
absolutely.
Islanders have been tagged with. So,
Yeah,
um, the point is the like we're gonna do it again this summer. Like the Islanders
sure.
they'll be linked to Pinto or
Mm,
whoever, and we'll all fall in love with the idea. That's how fandom works, and
mm,
we'll be right there with them. And then in the middle of next year, we'll be like, well, man, thank God we didn't sign
yeah,
whoever. Um,
right. Well,
Adrian Kempe or something.
the patron saint of all this is always going to be Thomas Vanek, who turned down a massive deal from the Islanders
Yes.
in 2014. They got traded for basically nothing. No offense to Sebastian Kohlberg. We actually talked about this in depth on the Mailbag podcast. And thank God. Thank God he turned that trade down, because they would have had to buy him out. They would have been paying him the same like the time they're paying DiPietro till 2029. They would have been paying him, and not for nothing, but can you imagine had they given $12 million a year to the guy drafted ahead of Victor Hedman, who is now a third line center for the team that he left the Islanders for?
I know.
$12 million.
I know.
That's more than he's making now,
And
and
that
they
means no
paid
Brock
him.
Nelson.
It means no Brock Nelson. Means no Anders
No,
Lee. Means no Brock
no
Nelson.
Anders Lee, no
Yeah,
Brock Nelson, probably no Bo Horvat.
yeah, definitely no Bo Horvath.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
right.
because it
So
would have been him and
honestly,
Barzal.
maybe you can even say maybe no Matt Barzal if they kept one of Nelson or Lee at the time.
Yeah, Sure.
It's
Yeah. We wouldn't
it's
have all three of them for sure. Yeah.
right,
You
yeah,
definitely wouldn't
there'd
have
be
all three.
someone out, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny how these things end up usually working out, and, um,
I
the
completely forgot about Suter. We thought that he and
yes,
Parisi were going to be a package, and we ended up
exactly,
getting the better half of that package.
yeah, we're basically, like, paving the way for him,
Right.
yeah, I'll take
Mm.
Parisi's kids on the tour of the schools, you take Suter's kids on the tour of the schools, and,
Right.
yeah, they'll show
Yeah.
them houses for sale that are right next to each other on the same block,
Right.
so, yeah, it's yeah, it's crazy, and then the funny thing is, so these are all the trades that, or people that were linked that don't come,
Mm.
um, and the Islanders they caught a lot of heat, and once again, we're part of it for not making these trades or consummating them, especially the Gaudreau and, Kadri situations, and DeBrincat, I think, as well.
Mm.
And yet, the trade that they did make, that Bo Horvat trade, like, we I don't we spend a lot of time talking about it and tongue in cheeking it, but I don't think we actually I think it's still underrated just how
Mm.
much of a home run
Yeah.
that trade was for the New York Islanders. Like, talk about Patrick Waugh coming, being a potential, like, franchise changing moment, but Bo Horvat coming to the Islanders too has
Yeah.
been one of those. So, like, we focus so much on the guys that Lamoriello ends up not getting.
Mm.
Oh, and by the way, it was his fourth trade deadline. You heard that stat. Oh, this is the fourth
Yes.
trade deadline in a row that
You read my
Lamoriello doesn't.
mind. I was
Yeah,
just going to
doesn't
bring
make
this
a
up.
trade. He probably, when you talk about cost acquisition and impact on a team and the timing of it,
Mm.
there is an argument, and I'm not being hyperbolic with it, that Mike Riley's addition to the New York Islanders is likely, like, the best pound for pound move in the NHL this season. And maybe I'm missing something,
Mm.
missing, like, another one around the league, but I can't think of something off the top of my head where a player has come in and had as much of an impact for nothing that Mike
Yeah.
Riley has had. So
Yeah.
not one person, went around, like, when you do the trade deadline winners and losers or whatever. No, everyone was like, "Oh, Lou was asleep at the wheel again."
Mm.
It wasn't. Yeah, he kind of just did what he had to do already with the
Right.
Horvat trade last year and getting
Right.
Riley in. So
Oh, well, I was going to say that somebody, I forget who it was at Sportsnet, wrote that this was the fourth straight year that Lamoriello hasn't done anything at the deadline. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because he acquired Palmieri, Green, Zajac, Pajot, and Horvat all well ahead
yeah,
of the
before
deadline, before anybody
we
else
all know
could.
that Jim Rutherford likes to get his shopping done early, but for Lou, it's
Yeah,
yeah,
he's
and
asleep.
also
Yeah,
he traded for Pierre Engvall. I thought he traded for him on deadline day last year, or was it the
he
day
didn't.
before? Was it
It
just
was right around there.
yeah?
Yeah,
It was the
so
deadline. I just
right.
don't know if it was the actual, like,
Maybe.
day.
I
So
don't remember, but like, how are you going to say? How are you writing for Sportsnet and you don't know that this guy went out? That's what he
right,
does. He went out and got all of them before around the trade, not trade deadline, the All Star break. They all
right.
showed up around that same time, and they all signed extensions, and they all have worked out really well. So,
And it's the
but
same
that,
thing
yeah,
with, like, the draft pick thing. Like, oh, the Islanders haven't had a first round draft pick
yeah,
since 2019. It's yeah, well, because they turned them into players that
right.
I'd much rather have than a first round draft pick,
Romanov in that
including
case, right?
Roman.
Yeah,
Right, another trade that nobody has.
right.
I don't think anybody on in hockey, like, if I asked, okay, how did the Islanders get Alexander Romanov,
Mm,
would understand, like, how it happened. Oh, we
yeah.
want to see trades at the draft. Oh, here's a trade, by the way. No, we want to see other teams make trades at the draft.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's true. It's true. But the important thing is we all feel bad for Sidney Crosby.
Yeah,
We
I
definitely
mean,
can't,
that is the main message here.
yeah.
You can be as upset as you want about
Yeah.
Johnny Gaudreau not coming to the Islanders and
Right.
toiling away in Columbus, but
Right.
as long as you're still upset about Sidney Crosby.
By the way, I would have said that Alex Lyon, has done great things for Detroit, being, signing a very budget conscious deal at the last season during free agency. But he's currently getting his ass handed to him 7-3 by the Buffalo Sabres with 2 minutes to go. So he's off the list. But yeah, no, it's all true. Two other quick things before we wrap this up about the trade deadline. Shout out to the New Jersey Devils and Philadelphia Flyers for doing I don't know what. The Devils have needed a goalie all season long, so they traded for Jake Allen. They traded Vitek Vanacek to San Jose and then picked up Jake Allen, who is about 58 years old and is not going to help them. He's not going to help them. He might be better than Vanacek, but is he really going to help them? And they got Capo Kakinen, from the Sharks, who is also not going to help them. So I don't know what they were thinking, but Travis Green is their head coach now, so I guess that's kind of cool. Very weird. And I don't know what the Flyers were thinking, picking up Eric Johnson, who is 47 years old, and why you would think, you know what we need? We need a blue line tandem of Eric Johnson and Rasmus Ristolainen. That's what we're gonna have. We're gonna ride to the playoffs. Okay, guys, whatever you say. Although I did enjoy that they traded Sean Walker, who, by the way, somehow turned into Paul Coffey this year. I don't know where this guy has come from. I never even heard of this guy before this season, but he's been the most in-demand defenseman I can remember. They traded him to Colorado, and they got, I think, a pick and Ryan Johansson for him, which is fine. And then they immediately put Johansson on waivers, and he went to Lehigh Valley. And I think he wasn't going to play, but now he is in Lehigh Valley. To me, that's very funny. And like, this happens in the NBA all the time, where guys get traded and then waived immediately. I'm actually kind of surprised this doesn't happen more in hockey. Like, well, I guess there's too many, one-way contracts. So Johansson's definitely on one, and he's going to get paid a lot of money to play for Lehigh Valley. But if you don't have a place for him, why not just waive him, and maybe somebody picks him up and suddenly he becomes somebody else's problem, or you just leave him down there and then he'll leave on his own, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of funny, but anyway, as entertaining as that was, I have absolutely no idea what the Flyers are doing, and I definitely have no idea what the Devils are doing. So, and neither
Yeah.
of these two goalies are going to help them next year when they need
Yeah.
to come back. This season's a write-off. Okay, fine, but I don't know what they're going to do next year. And this Nico Dawes guy, he has not established himself yet. So who knows?
And to bring it back to Lou a bit here, and like if we're being honest, I think I I I love Lou Lamoriello too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if he signed Matt Martin to an 8-year extension tomorrow. I'd be mad about the move, but I wouldn't want Lou to leave the Islanders. I want this guy to be in charge of the Islanders forever. It's
Mm,
so much fun, and one of the reasons I've really grown to appreciate him here is that you look around the league and you look at a situation like New Jersey
mm,
or uh, Carolina to some extent, um, Ottawa,
yeah.
Toronto to some extent. These teams that are Detroit right now, like as you mentioned with Lion, like the Islanders have Semyon Varlamov as their backup. As their backup, like he, if the New Jersey Devils had signed Semyon Varlamov, the Islanders wouldn't have a chance to make the playoffs this
Yeah.
season because the Devils would be 15 points better than they are
Mm-hmm.
right now, right? Like, and the Islanders would be in a completely different kind of playoff race, and the Devils would be far and away better than the Islanders. And Lamoriello just doing the simple thing of, huh, I know it's in vogue that goaltending doesn't exist. Those guys down there are just a mirage, but I'm gonna buck the trend here and just lock up 2 really good goalies for a while because
Right.
it seems like that might be helpful.
Right. But no, you got to trade Varlamov. You can get a whole lot
Right.
for him.
Right.
And then so what if you have, again, some dork off the bus at the Port Authority playing backup? Well, who cares? You could get so much for him. Nope. 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 Nope.
Nope.
Nope. Nope.
Pretty good.
This is why we got
Yeah, we
Semyon
got this guy.
Varlamov. Right.
Yeah.
Who's
And okay, yeah, and let him he'll play for one of the teams that we're competing against. That's the
right.
other side of the equation, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah,
he
exactly.
goes plays for someone else.
Yeah.
So
It's so weird. We didn't really mention this, but it's so weird that he didn't win a game. He hasn't
I
won a
know.
game
Yeah.
till December, but he hasn't played poorly. Like,
I
he's
know.
been okay. And it's so weird. Anyway. Okay. Final thing before we close up shop on this particular episode. Again, next episode will be recording next Monday. So it'll come out Tuesday morning. Huge shout out to former Islander Josh Hosang, who just released his first ever album today. It's called Same, Same. It's on basically every streaming service. You could listen to it on Spotify. It's a hip hop album. I listened to it today. I am not a hip hop expert by any stretch of the imagination. I like the Beastie Boys. I like Roots. I like Long Island's Own Public Enemy. But I enjoyed it. Definitely, parental discretion is advised. But I enjoyed it. And listen, we will support Josh wherever he goes. And I hope this album does well. And according to Jeff Marek, Frege, he expect him to sign with the Florida Everblades soon. So his playing career is not over. And as they're aiming for a third straight ECHL Kelly Cup. So good luck, Josh. Good luck with your record. Good luck with the Everblades if you do in fact sign with them. And A Weird Islanders episode about Josh Hosang will happen. I promise you next season.
Yeah, thank God
Maybe
we
we
didn't
can
do
even
it
get
yet.
him. Yeah,
Thank God we didn't
exactly.
do it yet, you know?
We have a friend who's already has dibs. It would be great with him. Josh, if you're listening to this and you want to come on Weird Islanders, we'll totally bump our friend and we'll have you on, and we'll listen to where your life has gone since leaving the Islanders. But yeah, check it out. Same by Josh Hosang. If you just type in Josh Hosang into Spotify, you'll see it. So check it out. It was really good. I enjoyed it. Okay. That'll do it for this episode. Reminder to sign up at patreon.com for ad-free episodes, patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content. Again, mailbag episodes out. So sign up for the Country Club tier and you can listen to that mailbag episode and every other mailbag episode and get a chance to ask us questions for our next mailbag episode. We have a lot of fun with them. And a reminder that our first ever live event will be Saturday, March 30th at 4 p.m. at the beautiful brand new Offside Tavern in New York City. Around 4:45 or so, we'll start to record a live podcast that will be all about your Weird Islanders stories. So bring your Weird Islanders jerseys, t-shirts, swag, whatever you got, because we want to hear about it. That is Saturday, March 30th at Offside Tavern. Be there. It's going to be a great time. Follow us on Twitter at Isles Anxiety Pod. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and at Spotify. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen to more of their music at Bandcamp and at Spotify. And if you are in the UK, look out for them because they are on tour right now. So you can go see Family Dinner live and in person. Tell them Islanders Anxiety sent you. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Learn more at fansfirstsports.com. Shop vintageicehockey.com. We have Anxiety Club patches there. If you want one, you can go buy one. They're at vintageicehockey.com. They also have Kentucky Thoroughblades jerseys, which are dope. You should check them out. Try wines from the Pinot Project. The reviews are in. Everybody loves the Pinot Project. So buy their wine wherever you are, if you're in a restaurant or at UBS Arena. Don't forget to pre-order your Stadium Series bobblehead jersey from the fine folks at FOCO. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I know about the Stadium Series, how that game went, but it's a pretty cool bobblehead of Ilya Sorokin or Sparky. So check it out, foco.com. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Read and listen to his work at Action Network. We have covered a lot. You've been under the weather for the last couple of days. You toughed it out 2 days in a row of marathon podcasts. Any final thoughts going into this huge week for the Islanders against some teams who, again, on paper, they really should be better than?
Yeah, and the best part about it is that, like I referenced earlier, that when they play the Sabres on Thursday night and you get settled in on the couch for that game in Western New York, you're watching Brendan and Butch on the broadcast. Right before that puck drops, they're going to flash to the Islanders bench, and the head coach is going to be Patrick Waugh. That's still so awesome.
It's incredible. And hopefully this ride continues for a very, very long time. Perfect way to end it. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back in a week with another episode of Islanders Anxiety. Until then, take care, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.